I'm Carolee Garrison, and this is Seeking Sunshine, where we find the positive in the trials of life. Why don't you join me? 'Cause I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. Oh, oh. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. If you like this song, this is the acoustic version of Seeking Sunshine that is an exclusive just for my email list, which you can go get at caroleegarrison.com. Just hit subscribe, and then you will get an email that will send you to a place where you can go download the song and have it all for yourself for free. So go check that out. Welcome back to Seeking Sunshine. I know it has been a hot minute since I've had a new episode. That's because I've been working really hard on my debut album, and I kind of let that take over my life for a little while. Plus, I had my kids home for summer, and boy, oh boy, did that make it feel like it was impossible for me to just get anything done. So I'm super excited to be back. This podcast is going to just blow up from now on. I swear, I have so much planned, and it's going to be really amazing, and you're going to learn so much. There is a lot going on, a lot in the works. So today's guest is just so inspirational. She is such a joy to listen to. Her name is Amie Specht. She has something called FOP, which is a genetic mutation that makes it so a person doesn't stop growing bones. It's a really interesting disability to have. Basically, a bone, if you have an injury or impact on your body, it can spur bone to start growing over joints and over muscles. And over time, this can become really severely debilitating. Amie is a true inspiration. She tells her story about how she was diagnosed when she was really young and how she's been able to continue living her life in all of its glory and amazingness, even though she's had all of these challenges. It is a wonderful interview, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So welcome, Amie. I'm just going to have you jump right into your story today.
When I was a toddler, I was a normal kid. I did gymnastics, dance, everything that a kid would do. I climbed trees. I ran around. There was the only thing that was different about me was it took me a while to walk, and my big toes looked like that they had they said another toe on them. And that's a classic sign is we have, which I'll get into later, but on the side of our toes we have like a bunion type thing, and that's how you know you have FOP. Basically is you have that when you're born, but they just thought it was another toe that I was just weird. And so up until I was 4.5, I was actually probably 4, I was completely normal. I did everything every other kid does, no signs of anything wrong. And I went to school one day perfectly fine and showed up home, and my left leg would not bend. And I was dragging it. And my parents were like, yeah, it was pretty scary. My parents were like, what's going on? Because I mean, my
Something's
kid went to
seriously
school fine.
wrong.
Yeah, something is wrong here. Because I was dragging it. I didn't know how to walk with it, obviously, not bending and stuff. And so I was just dragging it around kind of. And so they started taking me to doctors, and trying to get checked. Nobody really knew what it was. At this time, there wasn't very many cases that were even known. So it wasn't even, I mean, even now there's not. So,
Yeah, it's like
but
1 in maybe 2 in a million now, I think is what
yeah,
Cassie
there's
said.
900 known cases. So, in the entire world, not just in like the United States, the entire world. So back then, which was 1988, there was very few known people. There wasn't even like a support group or anything for us.
Yeah, because the internet
And
wasn't a thing yet.
right, and nobody knew that they had it. Like it just and people had it obviously, but nobody really knew. And so my parents took me for testing, all this stuff. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then about 6 months later, so this was over 6 months, um, my mom's coworker came up to her and said, I think it was a coworker or a friend, but they said, I saw something on the news on some show about this disease called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. And it sounds kind of like what Amy's going through.
Holy
And
cow. I'm
yeah,
amazed at
how
how,
rare, right?
yeah, because I interviewed Cassie, I mean, months
Yeah,
ago. But like, I'm amazed at how you guys were able to find somebody who knew,
yeah.
like,
It was,
without living your entire life not knowing, but
yeah.
somebody
And
found you.
most of the time we get misdiagnosed. There's been people misdiagnosed with cancer, with mostly it's cancer because the growths that FOP causes look like a cancer growth. And so the doctor's like, oh, that's cancer, we need to remove it. And then removing it makes it worse. Um,
Oh, I had no
so
idea. That's awful.
yeah, so a lot of people have had surgery. I'm friends with one girl who they actually took her whole arm and shoulder, because they thought it was cancer in it. And so she has FOP in one arm now. Yeah,
Oh
so
no.
yeah, and she was only like 4 years old, when that
That's
happened.
really
So
horrific.
yeah, and they didn't need to do it. They didn't need to do it. And so unfortunately, they did, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so she's lived with one arm her entire life, which is affected by FOP, so it's even worse. But um, so so I was about 4.5, and they said, call this person and talk to him. And it was Jeannie Pieper, who also has FOP, and she was starting a group she was starting the IFOPA. And this was about 1989. And she was trying to find people that had FOP, and everything. And so my mom called her, and she told my mom to call Dr. Frederick Claplin, which is our main doctor in Philadelphia. And my mom called him, and he flew us out. Well, I don't think he flew us out, but he had us come out to his place, and he said, "Yep, your daughter does have FOP. There's nothing they can at that point. There's nothing to test. It was basically just visual, like this is
Just
what
looking at
happened
the
to her."
symptoms and being like,
Right,
okay, here's the symptoms.
exactly.
And then this was only what, a year maybe from when you first had your first
Yeah,
symptoms?
it was about 6 months. I got diagnosed within 6 months.
That's really
So,
fast.
oh, that's really fast. Sometimes it takes a couple years. Um, so now, but today it's a lot easier if doctors know about it, because there's actually like blood tests we can do, genetic tests. They can even do that in the womb. Um, like how they do for like Down syndrome, all of that stuff. They can actually test it in the womb,
Which I'm
but
sure that they don't do that regularly.
they
I'm sure
don't do it
that's,
regularly. Yeah, you have to
yeah.
ask for it. It's not one of their regular tests, but you can. You can't ask for that. Um, but the biggest thing is if your child is born and it has these bunions on their side of their big toe, and their big toe is smaller, then that's a sign of don't do shots yet. Get them tested for FOP. And more gynecologists and everything are learning about this, so they know to be looking for that sign now.
Awareness is so, so important.
Yeah, and we've been lucky lately with the awareness. So um and so 4.5, they were like, well, you can't do gymnastics anymore. You can't do dance because all of that induces trauma onto the body,
And
which could
anything
make
that
my
hurts
disease
you.
worse. Yes, anything that hurts me, even if it doesn't hurt, just the constant jumping, could cause an FOP flare up. And now, like I said, my first one was my leg, no trauma, just couldn't bend it, just straight. That I had no flare up with it, which normally we have a flare up that will last. I mean, it can happen overnight or during the day, or it can take months. So it just depends on what the flare-up's doing and where it's at and everything. Um, And usually it starts in the upper body. So mine started in the lower body, which was very different than most people. So I was pretty fine for a little while. And then I went to bed one night and woke up and my neck was straight. I couldn't move my neck. And my parents were like, "What in the world?" And this might have happened during that 6 months that I was waiting to be diagnosed. I can't remember that though, but I know it was pretty close. The first two things were very close. So I think both of those, and there was no trauma, it was just I was sleeping, I woke up and my neck was straight, and my parents were like, "What?" And so my parents were the type that was like, "Well, we're gonna treat her like a normal kid. Whatever we do, she's just a normal kid. She's still gonna clean her room. She's still gonna clean the bathrooms, fold laundry. Um, she can go out and play all she wants." Now I did have to stop sports, obviously, but they got me into sports that were for disabled children. So I started doing that. So
So
they made sure that I was
I'm
yeah,
curious if that approach was beneficial or not.
the to keep me to
To
take me
just
out of the
treat you,
sport
no, to just treat
or
you like a normal kid. Like, I'm wondering
oh
if
yeah.
that was
Oh
great.
yeah.
Good.
It was great. Because I didn't feel like I had a disability. I knew I did. They taught me about it. My parents were very open about it. Um, they weren't the type to like shield me from the disability or anything. They're like, "This is what you have. This is what it's doing," and my brother was taught the same things. "This is what your sister has. You cannot hit her. You cannot punch her. If you do, you're in trouble." Now, I did take advantage of that and would edge him on. And if he hit me, he would get in trouble, as a normal child would do. My brother's 14 months older, does not have FOP, does if he has kids, they will not. Well, they could have FOP randomly, but not genetically. Like it wouldn't be because what I am considered is a mutation for FOP. And so when my parents' genes came together, something happened, and the gene to continue growing bones did not stop. So when you're born,
Okay.
a
That makes
gene
sense.
cuts off, right? A baby is born with flimsy arms and legs, right? And they grow the bone and the cartilage and everything to form that. Now that cuts off at a certain age, or it's supposed to. It says you've made all your bone, you're good to go. Ours
And
does
yours
not cut
didn't.
off.
Okay.
Yeah. So my brother does not have any sign of that. He's completely normal as you want to say. I look at the
What
world
is
as
normal anyway?
that's what I say. Everybody has something, right? We all have something that we're facing, and whether it be you need glasses or you need an inhaler or anything, we're all facing something. So we're not. No, I don't think anybody's normal.
That's an
You
awesome
know.
way to look at it. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
totally true. Normal is a joke.
Right. I
Normal is a
say
fantasy.
I say normal in the aspect that
He doesn't have FOP.
yeah, he doesn't have FOP because
Typically developing is a good way to put
right.
it.
Yeah. If it's something that most people are accustomed to, then they look at that as normal, even though it's not. I mean, glasses are not normal. That's your body, something's wrong with it. So but in the sense of normal, that's what I mean usually. Um so he was a normal kid, he protected me. He I tried to play with him. I picked on him, got him in trouble a lot because he would try to pick on me. It was
Normal
kid
sibling
stuff,
relationships.
sibling
My
stuff.
kids
Yep.
fight constantly, so yeah,
Right.
I get that.
My parents let us. My parents weren't the type that was like we have to baby her, and everything. I was babied because I'm the baby of the family, but they didn't baby me in the sense of you're disabled, I'm going to baby just a
Which is
normal
awesome. Yeah.
small child. Um, and I was very small growing up. I was very short. I'm only 4'9", so I never grew. When I was, and I think a lot of that has to do with, so back to when I got FOP, through the years, um, I didn't have a lot going on. My jaw froze. my shoulders froze, my left arm froze. So when I say froze, they don't bend or they don't move. They might be in a bending position and don't straighten.
So the joints are kind of locked into place.
Exactly, they are locked in place. So
well, and you speak really well for your jaw being locked.
Yeah, my jaw is maybe a few centimeters open is all it can get. I still eat completely normal.
Good.
I am married. My husband cuts my food if I need it. Because I mean, obviously, like a big old chunk of steak is not going to go in between my teeth, But I mean, I can still eat everything. So I've been very lucky with that. And I also, as a kid, I had other issues. I had speech delays. Like I had to go to speech therapy. I couldn't say my R's. The normal.
I also went to speech therapy
Yeah.
and couldn't say my R's when I was a kid.
Yeah. I went from when I was first grade to fifth grade. I did speech therapy, and people were like, "You did?" Because I can speak good, and it's like, well, that's why I can, because I had to do a ton of speech therapy. They also, as a kid, I remember in kindergarten, I would act out all the time, and not really act out. They called it acting out. But it was like, I'm not coloring in the lines, the kindergarten acting out. And my mom and dad got called to the office quite a few times. Like, she's not doing what she's supposed to. We're going to hold her back a year. Because I started kindergarten at 4 years old. So I was tiny.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked like a little like 2-year-old, I was tiny. But by that point, I had been in preschool. My parents put us in preschool, and I could read already. And so they were like, she's not doing what she's supposed to. So first grade, they actually held me back a little bit and put me into like not really a special class. I don't know what they called it, but it was still first grade, but I guess more help, more hands-on help. And then that year, the teacher called my parents again and said, we got to talk to you about Amie. My parents are like, oh, great. And I go in and they said, Amie's gifted. She's not having problems, she's bored. And but I think also with the disability that a lot of people will look at people with disabilities and think, well, they're not smart. They can't be smart. A lot of them are really smart, like you can't say that about
You're totally right. So
Yeah.
I've taken like developmental classes and stuff, and so I have this.
Right.
It's not really my theory, but like we try to put people in boxes. It helps our brain feel comfortable to be able to put people in boxes. And so
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we just tend to take all disabled people and stick them in that one box, which is
Yeah.
not accurate. You can't just stick people in boxes.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
People are too different. People are too varied. Yeah.
Yeah. In high school, I went through the same thing. The teachers would give me the easy test, thinking she must need that. And I mean, that's okay if you need it. I don't, it's not a problem.
But it's not okay for them to assume
Or
that.
assume it's
Yeah, just by
exactly
you cannot tell anything about somebody by looking at them.
right. But being a teenager, I said, oh, I get the easy test. And I took it. So I was like, shoot, I'm gonna pass this test, So I took it. I didn't care. I cared in that they're assuming, but I was like, I get the easy test,
But also, I'm gonna take advantage of this.
Right. And I did. I was really bad. But when I was in so that was high school was great. I'll talk about that in a minute. But so my dad is a chemical engineer who worked for ExxonMobil, and he had to move a lot. So we started moving when I was at the age of 10. The first time we moved was to New Jersey, and we get there, and of course, I'm going into sixth grade by that time, and they're like, "But you're only 10." I'm like, "Yeah, so what?" And they're like, but you're too little, you know? And so I actually had to take a test to prove that I was allowed to go into 6th grade, even though I had already done 5th grade. You know, they had me do a test and I passed it with flying colors. I was like, okay,
Because
whatever,
you
you know?
started preschool early
Yeah.
instead
So,
of it, or kindergarten early because
well,
it
I
said at
started
5.
preschool at 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I mean, I was reading books, not like chapter books, but I could read at 3. So, you know, it was just, my brother could too. He was, he wasn't labeled gifted, but he was in like another type of class that they had at our schools called magnet, which is, yeah, so he was like the smarts of like English and stuff like that, you know. So um and so I had to prove, and I think with disabilities you're always having to prove yourself. Again, I don't know if it was, but I
Well, I could
feel it
tell
was
you,
related.
my daughter's in 6th grade and she's
Hmm.
11 and she'll be 12 in just a couple months.
Yeah,
So you were about a year ahead.
a year ahead, yeah.
Yeah, just age-wise, like
Yeah.
just
And
from
so they
that.
were nervous, you know, obviously they'd never seen me before. Um and I
I'm
went
sure
there.
starting over was nothing easy. I mean, with all the doctors and with all the people
Oh
understanding,
yeah.
I'm sure starting over was so hard.
It was hard. Actually, the hardest it was on my mom and my brother. Not because of doctors, just because they did not like it there. My brother doesn't deal with change as well, so that was very hard on him. And my mom, she, you know, it was the Northeast, and she's from the South. Well, she's from West Virginia, so she has a huge accent, and you know, it was just a whole different culture for us and everything. And so, and one day, I actually hit the table and I said, guys, this is where we live. Suck it up and just get on with life. And my family just all looked at me and was like, okay, she said it, you know, and she's the one that has to deal with everything, you know. So and by that time, I mean, it was still just my left knee that was straight, that had originally frozen. My like I said, my jaw, my neck, and my shoulders, and my left elbow. That's, I mean, that all happened from 4 to 10. So all of that stuff. And like I
So
said, my
with
parents.
so
Oh,
with
go ahead.
all of that, you could still like get along fairly easily. You could still walk, you could still
Yeah,
do
I was still
most
walking.
things.
I used a walker. We had a walker that I did use at school, and sometimes I used a wheelchair, like a manual wheelchair, but not very often. I could still do everything myself. My parents sometimes had to help me get dressed, type of things, because I mean my shoulders were locked up. So, but excuse me, but they you know, they pretty much wanted me to do what I could and then ask for help if I needed to. And so I didn't have an aide or anything at school. It was just me. Um I was pretty open, so I'd say like get out of my way, you know, type of thing, or you can't hit me, you know, like kids bump into each other type of thing. And again, my parents were the type that were like, you're going to be a kid, you know.
Let you be as
And
independent as possible.
yeah, yeah, so they, you know, they didn't want to get me an aid yet or anything, to, because they were like, you know, she's not gonna be as outgoing as she can be, you know. And it was true, you know, if I had somebody, I would probably like venture into a little area, you know, and be like, I'm not gonna talk to anybody. But I was a very outgoing child. I would go up to anybody, um, and talk to them. My parents sometimes got scared about that because they were like, she's talking to strangers, you know. But I was a very outgoing child, so they kind of wanted me to keep that, you know. And then again, keep your independence, learn what you can do, what you can't do. And at home they would help me, um you know, sometimes in the bathroom, and sometimes getting like my shirt on and stuff. But most of the other stuff I could do. Then in 6th grade, I guess, 7th grade, Um, I fell down a half a flight of stairs.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, yeah. I was at a church with my friend and I got nervous and I fell. I fell down the stairs. And I remember laying there and my leg, of course, was killing me. And the workers at the church, they didn't know anything about FOP because it wasn't even my church. They didn't know anything about FOP or anything. And they were like, bend your knee. It's okay. You can bend your knee. And I'm saying, I
Oh no
can't bend my
no.
knee. I can't bend that knee because it was my straight knee, the knee that froze at the very beginning, the first thing. I said, I can't bend it. And they were like, yeah, you can. You're just nervous. And my friend had to look at him, goes, she cannot bend her knee. Like she cannot bend it. And they finally settled down and my dad came and got me and I had broken my knee. Um, I
On the
had
straightened side or the other side?
the straight knee. Um, and I had cracked up into my pelvic a little bit as well. Um,
Ouch.
yeah, so I was in a full leg cast from my ankle to my hip, kind of, I guess your pelvic bone or something. I was in a full leg cast, and what was bad was my grandparents were in town for their 40th anniversary, and we were supposed to be going to Niagara Falls in 2 days. And so I went to the hospital, they figured out it was broken and everything. And we still went to Niagara Falls 2 days later. My parents were like, I was like, we can do this, guys. So we got a bag and put it over the leg. And I went on to the Maid of the Mist and went out in there, with this full legged cast and we worked it out. Luckily, I
Cool.
already had
I'm
a
glad that
wheelchair.
worked out.
Yeah, I had a wheelchair already. So, it kind of worked out good for that because, they put me in the wheelchair, put the leg rest up on it, put my leg up, and I was good to go. But that was another one of those things was my parents, I think at that point they had let me decide how I was feeling, but they had instilled that in me to keep going. Like you can't just let something get you down completely. You got to keep going. And so I was extremely lucky, and because that type of fall should have completely frozen my body. Every joint should have frozen at that point. That's a traumatic fall.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I mean, when you think about falling, I can't lift my arms out to catch me because of the shoulders and because my shoulders are frozen in spot. So I can't catch myself. So I basically just tumbled down these stairs. And as far as we know, nothing from FOP happened at all. I only had the broken knee. Um, and people always laugh when I say only, but that's all that happened. Um, I got very lucky in that instance. My hips did seem a little, I don't know, it wasn't FOP that did anything, but they got out of balance. So it was hard to walk after that. But I don't think FOP, as far as we know, FOP didn't do anything. It was more
You
of,
didn't have a flare up and nothing got like
yeah,
locked in place
as far
new.
as we know, as far as we know, something might have, and that caused the balance to be off, but we don't know. Then again that year, seventh grade was like the worst year. Um, I broke my ankle. On when you're painting and you have the thing down on the paint for the paint. I broke my ankle on that because I tripped.
Ouch.
We had no idea it was broken. I told my parents it hurt. So as a kid, I was a great liar, and I would lie about a lot of things to get my way. And my parents had a very hard trusting a lot of the things I said. Now my mom knew it hurt. She was fine with that. She knew it hurt. Now I was still walking on it. So my mom's like, well, it can't be that bad, if she's walking on it. And so I think at that point, my mom might have thought that I was saying it hurt more than it did or something. Because I had also been in trouble that day. So, you're like, I want to get out of being in trouble too. But so a little bit of time passes, like a week or something. And I said, Mom, this still hurts. Yeah, I can walk on it, but it still hurts. So she got me into the doctor because she was like, yeah, we need to get this checked in, if it's still hurting you. So we got into the doctor, and it was not my regular doctor. And he said, oh, it's just sprained. It's fine. We'll just put a splint on it, like a little like wrap on it or something. 2 weeks later, it still hurt. I said, Mom, this is not getting better. So she took me, at this point, we're in New Jersey. So she drove me to Philadelphia, where Dr. Kaplan is. He said, will you please check her ankle, because it's still hurting her. And he was like, oh, yeah, it's been broken for the whole time, and it should have been casted immediately. And we're like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And he goes, and it's already healing. So, and we can't re-break it because of FOP, because it'll cause trauma for FOP.
So it was just healing wrong the whole time because they didn't
Healing
find
wrong
it?
because they didn't find it when my mom took me in. Yeah. So
Ah.
yeah, he was like, yeah, they probably just didn't know how to put the ankle to see it properly. But yeah, it's healing now. And he was not happy. He was like, I cannot believe they missed this. And so usually at that point, they would reset your ankle, and break it again to cast it and let it grow back properly. Not me. I couldn't do that. And it was on growth plates. So I think that altered my growth a little bit because that growth plate had fractured. And so, I just never grew and everything. So then nothing with FOP came out of that, luckily. Just broken ankle. And it healed wrong. So it hurt like a lot all the time. And I'm trying to think. And then we moved to Texas after that. So 8th grade, I started in Texas. And in 9th grade, I ended up with both ankles broken because I put so much weight on my right ankle that
Because
it
you were
caused,
overcompensating.
yeah. So I started high school with 2 casts on my feet. Like one was an air cast, luckily the other one was a cast. And I spent all of high school basically in casts because we could not get it to set right. They would just constantly fracture. So that was fun. And I could still walk at this point. I will say that I could still walk. I used a manual chair backwards. So I pushed my manual chair with the armrests that you normally sit your arms on. I would hold on to those and push a manual chair and walk. And so I walked around my whole high school. We had a huge high school, over 2,000 students. So it was huge, and I would walk that every day and do fine until, so FOP was very quiet until about senior year, sophomore year, I guess. I ended up skipping 11th grade. So I took some extra classes, and I started my senior year at 15 years old. So I was a baby. And
Yeah, you were.
yeah, I was a big baby. But I was also in, my parents, they were like, do what you want to do in high school, have fun and everything. So I was the manager of our gymnastics team. So I went to all practices and all meets and everything, all
That's pretty
competitions.
cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So I got to get friends and everything. I was in choir, I was in student council, and I was also in Girl Scouts. So I was also in theater. So I was the kid that was never home. I was always at some thing for school.
Well, I did theater, and just the theater life alone takes over your life.
Oh, the theater life was crazy. Sometimes we had practice until like midnight.
Yep.
Yep. And then we'd get home, and I couldn't drive or anything. So my mom would come and get me. And I think a lot of that is what instilled in me to be outgoing and to be positive, because and to keep trying, because she kept doing it, senior year, my dad had to move to another state for work. They did not want to take my brother and I away from our school again. So my mom and my brother and I stayed in one state, and my dad moved to another state. And we come back every 2 weeks to see us and everything. So my mom raised two kids, two seniors at this point, alone, that both have tons of activities to do. So it was pretty crazy, but I think that's a good role model, to for her to not be like, well, I'm not doing any of that stuff, like you guys have to quit everything because I'm alone, or
For
something.
her to just support you so fully is
Yeah.
amazing.
And she was, that's how she was, she's like, as long as you guys are being good kids, then we can do what you need to do, um and I did try, I wanted to do cheerleading at first when I went into high school. And my mom, I came home and I told my mom, I'm going to be a cheerleader. And my mom's like, I she didn't want to be mean. She didn't know how to say it, but she's like, I don't think you can be a cheerleader, because everybody knows what cheerleaders do. And I said, I looked up the definition. Cheerleaders are people that cheer, and I can talk loud, so I can do this. And my mom said,
Yay, I love it.
okay. So my mom said, yep, you can do it. And we started talking to the cheerleading coach, and she was going to let me. She was going to let me go in there and everything and be a cheerleader, And then I saw the sign for gymnastics, and that's what I did as a child. And I said, "Oh, mom, gymnastics." And she's like, "Okay." I mean, I'd already told her about cheerleading, so she's like, "Whatever, she's going to do what she wants to do," you know. And and the gymnastics team was so supportive, and I absolutely love them. I remember my senior year, and I think a lot of the people that surrounded me really helped me stay positive too. My senior year is when FOP started taking control of my hips really bad. And there were times I'd be walking down the hall, and because I would tell my teacher, I got to go home. I can't do this today, And I would walk down the hall to go to the nurse's office to call to go home, and it would hurt so bad that I had to just stop and cry because I could not walk, like it hurt that bad. And
I'm so sorry.
it, and there was times where it was like I want to stay home, but I kept going to school, and that was the thing. My mom kind of was like, try. And I said, yeah, I'll try. I'll try the day. And if I can't, I'll come home, you know. And so I missed a lot of school that year. I also missed a lot of gymnastics that year, because I just couldn't do it, They a big medicine that we use for FOP is prednisone, which is a steroid. And we take very high doses. I can
Which long
say
term has bad consequences.
yes. Well, luckily we only do it when we have a flare up. So we don't take it long term usually. But 4 days of 100 milligrams. Now, when you take prednisone for, say,
Wow.
a lung infection, which a lot of people take prednisone for, you're taking about 10 or 20 milligrams a day. So we're taking, 4 times that, right? A
Holy
day.
cow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And there were times I'd be in class and I would just fall asleep. I just fall asleep on the desk, And again, no aid or anything to help me. I was by myself still. My parents didn't see a need for it. I didn't see a need for it. I would leave class 5 minutes early during high school, and I would usually have a friend that would help me carry my books and everything. Or if I was having a bad day and needed to be pushed to my wheelchair, they would do that. So, but I still didn't need an aid. I was very popular. Um, a lot of people knew me. As a senior, not as a senior, as a freshman, I went in front of the whole school, so 2,000 students, and gave a speech about FOP and about what I'm going through and what it is, and that I'm just a normal kid here, you know. And so a lot of people knew me at the school, you know. There would be people come up to me in the hallway, go, "Hey, Amy," and I'm like, "I don't know who you are, but hi," you know. um, but that's just how it was, you know. And and so lots of people were just so nice to me. My school had a few people that some were deaf, some had other disabilities, and they were just all nice to everybody, you know. Um, our school didn't really discriminate against other, you know, people with disabilities or anything. So
That's
that was really
awesome.
good. And all the teachers understood when I fell asleep in class, the teachers were just like, okay, you know, they knew I was on medicine, you know, they were like, she has to sleep, you know, and they were pretty out, you know, they were pretty okay with it. So high school was really good. They were very accepting. I think that helped me a lot in keeping a positive attitude with them. Um and um and just keep going, you know, along with my parents, my mom, you know, just being like, you got this, you know, just try. Got to come home, then I understand, but just try, you know. And I ended up graduating at 16 with my brother, who was 17. He absolutely hated it because it was his year to graduate, not mine. Um, Again, sibling rivalry, right? But college came and he was very excited because Amy paid attention in class and remembered what homework was and would help him because we had a few of the same classes. So he was like, hey, I kind of like her graduating with me because now we can have college together. For college, we actually moved again. My dad was then sent to another state. So we all moved down with my dad to back to Louisiana, which is where I was originally from. And my brother and I started college there. And the hip thing ended, but I couldn't walk as much. I could walk some, but like out and about, I couldn't really walk anymore. It just, my balance was just not good, you
And it
know.
was probably super tiring.
Yeah, you know, because by this time I'm kind of, because I have scoliosis as well. So by this time I'm to the right. I lean to the right, and I'm twisted to the right, and I'm kind of leaning over as well. So kind of in a bent position, lean to the or turn to the right.
And
And so
they couldn't fix your scoliosis because of your
no,
FOP, right?
they they thought about putting me in a, like, I don't know what it was, but it's like a jacket thing that you wear constantly, and it helps straighten your back. But then they said it's just going to come back because that's part of FOP, you know. So my parents were like, we're not going to put her through that, you know, like, because I'm pretty sure it was like painful and all of that too. Um, so my parents were just like, if it's just going to come back, what's the point, you know? A couple years of her having a little bit more movement in her back. I mean, my back wasn't painful or anything. It was just my hips, you know. So they're like, ah. So my parents and I decided, we all decided, kind of, no, it wasn't worth it, you know. And so in college, another big thing happened, and I got the flu. A lot of people don't associate the flu as being something trauma related, but it is.
But it affects
Um,
your respiratory system, right? Isn't that a huge thing with FOP?
it is respiratory is, luckily at this point I have no issues with my lungs or respiratory. Very lucky in that regard. There are children nowadays with FOP that have very bad lungs, you know. So I got very lucky. But it also causes a lot of trauma to your body. You're fevering, you know, all of that stuff. So when I was it was when I was 17 by this point, no, 16, 17, somewhere in there. And I was in college and I got the flu. So I was out of college for the flu, obviously. for like a week. Well, then FOP acted up because it caused a flare up from the flu, and my right arm ended up freezing bent. Up until that point, no problems with that arm, except for the shoulder, um, and my wrist froze. Now, your wrists and your fingers and your ankles and your toes, those are very rare for FOP to actually freeze up. I don't
So
know
it's mostly
why.
bigger joints.
Yeah, it's mostly your bigger joints. Like none of your like internal organs or anything are gonna freeze up. They could get bone over them, but they're not the actual like lung or anything is not gonna freeze, but it gets restricted by the bone.
Oh, yeah, because it's not muscle that's freezing, it's
Right.
bone.
Well, muscle does freeze. So, well, it's hard to explain. I'll kind of explain it a little bit. So with FOP, sheets of bone are actually growing over your joints. So when you think, and it could be just like a line of bone that grows that connects from like your lower arm to your upper arm. Now, when that line grows, like just like a little thin strip, right? When that grows and connects to the upper arm and the lower arm, well, you can no longer bend that arm because that line is over that joint. So that's kind of what happens. It doesn't grow from the bone or like from the muscle really. It connects to it. So it's growing like a random piece of bone that connects to it and creates a new thing. So that's sometimes it's big bone, like a big sheet, and sometimes it's just little thin pieces. And I have x-rays that show it, and it's like, man, that's all that's there. It's really weird. But so my wrist did freeze. It ended up freezing, so I couldn't write anymore. I can kind of sign my name if you put it at the correct angle for me. But a lot of writing is going to hurt a lot, it's more tiring than probably hurting, but I mean, the arm's frozen, the wrist frozen. I can't really move to write, And so at this point, I'm in trigonometry, which is all writing and graphing. And my teacher, so I have missed 2 weeks of school at that point, and my teacher goes, "You need to take your test tomorrow." I said, "What? I can't write, you know? And this is the only teacher I've ever had that was not accommodating to my disability. That was disappointing, It kind of let me down a little bit in because I'd never experienced that before. And it was like, wow. I mean, I'm not trying to like use my disability as a problem here, but I really can't write anymore,
But it's not exactly fair.
Yeah, like give me a little bit of time here, like I just missed 2 weeks of school and can't write. How am I going to do this? And so I did drop that class. It was disappointing just at how unaccommodating they were, and I wasn't going to fight it or anything. It was just like, you're just dumb, you're not a nice teacher, and we don't need that, so I got out of that class. um and then after that, um I continued college, of course, and
When did you meet your husband?
that's what I was about to say. So I met my husband when I was 19, um 19 or 20, somewhere in there. And we met on a video game online. My brother got me into a video game. And I was running through the streets and I saw him, and there was a thing called, so I did makeup in the game. I would put makeup on people and everything in the game. And
Cool.
yeah, yeah, it was fun. um, and you had to practice on people. Well, my brother was like, go find people to practice on. I'm not going to help you. And I'm like, but you're the one that got me into this game. And he was like, no, go find people. So I said, okay. And so we called it grinding because you're grinding at uh, an activity, right? You're doing it over and over and over and over just to get the points. And so I'm running through the streets on the game, and I see this person, and I go up to him and said, "Can I grind on you?" Don't ever use that pickup line on people. That's not in this game, okay? Seriously. Um, and he goes, "Well, yeah." I mean, he knew what I was talking about, obviously, but it's like the worst pickup line that you could probably say. And I'm this little like 20-year-old that's not even thinking about that type of stuff, right? Now, obviously, it's funny because you know what it's like,
That's
well, that
funny.
could mean something very suggestive. um, and so, but it wasn't. It was pure innocence here. And we started talking and we became friends. And a few years later, we met in person. And I was like, I mean, he kept saying, "I want to, meet you and everything." And I'm like, "No, I'm not ready yet. And so we finally met in person. At this point, we had moved to California. Um, and I've had
You've
some
really
bad,
been everywhere.
I have been everywhere. um, and I had some bad relationships before him. I had one, unfortunately, that was really bad and scary. And I'm glad I got out of that one. I won't really talk about that one, but I met him and we moved to California, and I met him in person and we hit it off. And I said, my dog, and the reason why I met him, I finally decided to, was my dog had passed away.
So
My dog
sorry.
growing up, she was a lovely dog, and I started going to therapy for it, because I was having a hard time with it. Um, we all experience grief differently, and it was hard for me with this dog.
With a
Um,
lifetime companion like that,
yeah,
yeah, that's so
she was
hard.
14, so we had her for a long time, and it was very hard. And we had to choose to put her down. It wasn't She didn't just pass away. It was a
It's
hard thing.
so tough. My
It
husband had
is.
dogs when he was a kid, and he has some severe PTSD from
Oh
them
yeah.
dying,
It,
and it was really hard for him.
it's I got panic attacks from it. I started having anxiety, panic attacks. So I said, "Mom, I've got to see somebody. I've got to talk to somebody." And so I started seeing a therapist, and she noticed I kept talking about this guy. And she said, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's my friend. It's he lives in Oregon. He's a friend I met online." And she goes, I think you really need to meet him because you seem to really like him." And I'm like, "Oh, do I?" And a couple months later we met. I said, "We'll do it." So even with a positive attitude, I feel like sometimes you need that help. You should
Yeah, of
never
course.
be afraid to say, "I need help." Um, Never let it feel like because you can't, get over something, that you're somehow not worthy or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like if you need that, and if it's just somebody to talk to, that's all I needed, was somebody to talk to about things.
Help you process
And
everything.
yeah, because we had moved a lot. I did not have a lot of friends.
You had a traumatic
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Like I needed, and with my arm freezing and all of that, I actually needed help with that. I had so much sadness over that arm freezing because I could no longer do everything.
It took away a
Um,
huge chunk of your freedom.
oh, it did. It took away being able to walk. It took away being able to get into the shower. Um, it was I could kind of get into the shower, but like we would wash my hair a lot over the bathtub. Um, it just it took a lot. My parents had to help me completely now, get dressed and go to the bathroom. And I had AIDS all of a sudden, caregivers, and it took a lot. That arm going away took a lot. And talking to somebody helped me through it. Just talking about how frustrating it is, and just being told you can do this, like we're just going to learn how to do your life this new way, and that's what I did. And so at 21, I think it was, I got engaged, and
Yay!
yep. And I think I was 21, somewhere in there. It's been a long time. Um, but and I moved to Oregon with my husband alone, basically. My mom moved up there for a couple months. Um, Again, my mom, a huge supporter, moved up there for a couple months and said, I will help teach your husband how to do things for you and what needs to be done. And then I'll leave.
And what an amazing
Yep.
person he must be.
Oh my gosh, my husband, I got so lucky with him. He has to help me get dressed. He has to deal with bathroom, bathing. If I'm stinky, he has to deal with it. He can't just be like, go take a shower, you're stinky. He's like, he has to do it, and a lot of husbands would never do that. They'd
Yeah, that's
just be like,
amazing.
I'm not doing that stuff. And so he worked and I stayed home all day by myself. I cooked myself lunch from my wheelchair and would go to the bathroom if I needed to. He would come home from work if I needed him to go to the bathroom. Um, but I usually try by myself, so I didn't have to bug him. And we did that. We got a puppy. We had a kitty. We're a normal couple, basically, except he has to help me with everything, And then, and again, FOP, I had learned to live my life the way FOP had me, right? That therapy appointment said, well, there was a few therapy appointments, but they helped me realize I can do this, right? And I started learn. I got dressing sticks to learn how to dress myself. I could take off my shirt myself. I could wash my upper body myself. I would do that all by myself, and then he would help out when I needed it, of course. It was great, and then in 2009, um, I saw him pass out, and
Oh
it
no.
caused my panic attacks to come back. Um, when you have these things, you can't control it, and at that point, I let it get to me. Um, I had 2 years of agoraphobia, which if you don't know what that is you're scared to leave your house.
Yeah, I was gonna say social kind of anxiety.
I could not step outside my house. Um, I couldn't even step out into the yard. It was that bad. Matt, my husband, could not go to the bathroom without me right outside his door. Um, it was bad. It was really bad. Going to the grocery store for him, he would have to run there and come back because I could not be left alone very long. Um, and I did let it get to me. I had troubles with it, and for about 2 years, and he luckily, not luckily because it was bad, but he was getting unemployment because he had lost his job, so he was able to get unemployment, um, and so he was able to stay home with me and help me and everything. Um, and
You know,
then
blessings do come in disguise like that.
it, and
They really do.
my life has gotten so good. He is now home 24/7 with me. He now gets paid to take care of me.
That's
With where we
awesome.
live. Yeah, with where we live, he gets paid to take care of me. Um, and we now have another cat and another dog. FOP has not really progressed anymore. I do still have flare-ups. I do still have I'm getting older. I'm not old, but I'm getting older, and your body kind of weakens. I'm 37, so your
You're
body,
not
your
old, but yeah,
uh,
I totally understand.
yeah, your body, I mean, things start to hurt. And so it gets harder to do things, and it is hard to do things. I can't dress myself anymore, do any of that, just because my body won't allow it. It just will hurt. But he helps me, um, and I get up every day, and ready to do the day. I do get tired easily, so I take naps and all that. But you just have to keep going, and realize, keep doing what you can do it while you can. So my biggest thing is, don't disable yourself.
I
um
love that.
yeah,
That is amazing.
that is, and I tell it to everybody, don't disable yourself. And what I mean by this is, um when you have a headache, and I'm not saying you can't rest when you have a headache, because please never think that. And I get this a lot. People will tell me, "Oh, your disease is so bad and you must hurt a lot." And I get a headache and I feel awful. I need to be strong like you. And I'm like, "No, because you haven't gone through what I went through." So that headache to you could be just as bad as a flare up to me. Like, don't ever think that what you're going through you should be able to handle it because I can handle something, because everybody handles it differently. But don't disable yourself either. So if you get a headache, don't be like, I can't do anything in this world, because
Take
then
a
you're just
Tylenol and
saying,
move on.
take a Tylenol and move on and get on with life. Exactly. Because at some point you're not going to be able to do that thing. You're not going to be able to, and you're going to wish that you had done it when you could, because we all get older and we're all going to have problems eventually.
Well, and it's not
So,
just physical ways that we disable ourselves. Like I've been thinking,
oh yeah,
I'm working on my album, and I spent my whole life waiting for somebody to discover me to do all the hard parts for me. And
yeah,
I'm just now like learning all of the hard parts so that I can just do it myself. And like, how
yeah,
many years did I just disable myself because I was like, nope, it's too hard. I can't do it.
yeah, yeah. And I think that that happens. I mean, just just do it, because eventually you're not going to be able to. And that's just life. And once I start, and my other attitude is never say can't. I don't use that word. You It's not that you can't do it. It's that you haven't tried, you know. If sa- and people will say, "But I can't do this." And it's like, "But try." You
It's a
know?
choice. Can't is a
Yeah,
choice.
can't is a choice. I mean, if like writing, I probably said I can't write earlier. Um and then
But
I
it's a choice
retract.
to not be in that much pain, which is a
Exactly.
valid choice.
Right. I can write,
You just have to
but
approach
it
it
hurts.
from a choice perspective. Is it worth it?
Exactly. Exactly. And so it's not that you can't do it. It's that something is blocking you right now from doing that. And I think that that attitude is important,
I
because
totally agree. Like you were saying earlier, like you couldn't bend your knee, and all these people were going, "Oh, you could do it." Technically, you could bend your knee, but then it would be a broken bone, and that's not worth it.
exactly. and and it bends a little bit, and it's like so you've got to realize there are going to be obstacles in life, and some you're not going to be able to get around, but you've got to look at the positive part of that, right? Like, well, that's not my problem that there's an obstacle there. That's their problem. I'll just go this way and find a different way to do it, right? And that's kind of how you have to look at it, especially
That's
with
a
a
great
disability. Yeah.
perspective.
Like, I mean, physically, I cannot go up a flight of stairs, but if there's an elevator, guess what? I can get to the next floor. So you have to find that what you can do to go around what is hard for you to do. And usually
I
that
love
can't is
that.
that it's just too hard. It's, and if it is too hard, find something that makes it easier, or find something to help you with it. Um and if in the end you can't throw that soccer baseball, you know, you tried and you threw it somewhere. Like, I mean, right? If
Yeah,
you take
it
a baseball
went.
in your hand, it went. You still threw it, maybe not good, but you did it.
Yeah.
It's like I was never good at golfing. My dad's a huge golfer. I can hit the ball with the I don't even know what they're called. Um, but I
The
can hit the
clubs.
ball, the clubs, yeah. I can hit the ball, the little thingy with the clubs, and it'll go maybe an inch. But I did it. It's not as good as anybody else, but yeah. So that's how I think that those are the things that really keep me positive in life is just to remember that type of stuff. And
That's amazing. I
yeah,
love that. Thank you so much
yeah.
for sharing that.
You're welcome.
This has been such a, I have really enjoyed hearing your story and how
Yeah.
positive you are. I love it. You've been through so much and yet you still are going and trying and doing all the things
That's
and
what you
it's
got to do. You got to
awesome.
keep on. And like I said earlier, there is no normal. We all have something that we have to go through. Um, yes, I've had a lot that I've gone through. Um, but um, we all go through something, and you just got to look at it and say, I can get through this. And there are people that get quadriplegic that when they're older and everything. And I look at those people and I'm like, man, that's got to be hard, because the things I went through happened when I was younger.
It can always be
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. And when I was younger, I mean, my parents let me do as much as I could, but they went through teenage years, and there are people with FOP that don't get diagnosed till they're a teenager. And that
Wow.
breaks my heart because they've now gone 15 years of their life as somebody who could do anything they wanted. And now they're being told you can't. And that's where you stop it and you say, I can. We're just going to do it this way, from now on.
That
And
is such a huge challenge mentally to have
I,
that change, that
yeah,
drastic of I mean, and as a parent of kids who have disabilities where you're like you have all these dreams for your kids and these people who have all these dreams for their life and then it's like, oh, that has to drastically change now. And to let it
yes,
change instead of letting it be crushed
yeah,
is so
yeah.
important.
Just change you have to change. You have to realize, and I've heard this recently a lot, is the only constant in the world is change. And I try to keep on with that too, is,
And we have to
yeah,
adapt.
yeah, we always have to adapt, whether it's you don't have the money this month, or your kid gets hurt, something. You're always adapting to something so you can do it. And I think that's important, is that you keep that attitude and say, I can do this. So
I
yeah.
love it. Thank you so much for
You're
doing
welcome.
this. It's been so much fun to talk with you.
Oh my goodness, what an incredible, inspiring message that we just heard from Amie Specht. I just love listening to her. I love her energy and her attitude on life. It is just addicting to listen to such positivity. So here are my very favorite takeaways from this episode. Number one, just keep going and keep doing what you can do while you can still do it. There's going to come a time when you won't be able to do everything that you can do now. So fit it all in as much as you can now. Number two, don't disable yourself. Number three, never say can't. It's not that you can't do it, it's just that you haven't tried. Can't is a choice, and you have to decide, is it worth it? And number four, find a way around the obstacles that face you in life. Thank you for this inspiration, Amie. It was so wonderful to talk to you, and thank you all for listening today. I'm going to send you off with a song. I heard you want to quit again. You're feeling like a fool for thinking that this path was meant for somebody like you. You put yourself out there again. your confidence is scarred. If this was really meant to be, why is it so damn hard? But wait, maybe it doesn't have to look the way they said it did. And wait, what if it's not too late to change your mind or change the world? Don't give up just yet. Wait. Your heart feels like an empty shell, and you forgot to breathe. You have a desperate longing for a hope you can't yet see. I've seen how much you've sacrificed. I know inside you burn. You don't think that you're good enough, but tell me what you've learned. But wait, maybe it doesn't have to look the way they said it did. And wait, what if it's not too late to change your mind or change the world? Don't give up just yet. Wait. You may think your time has come and gone, but another day is coming with the dawn. Wait, maybe it doesn't have to look the way they said it did. And wait, what if it's not too late to change your mind or change the world?